Ava's boots sank into the damp earth, the woods behind the school swallowing sound like a held breath. Late autumn had stripped the trees bare, their branches clawing at a sky bruised with gray. She moved through the fog, her silence not just habit, but armor, shielding her from the world's questions about Lila, her sister, gone 4 years now. The air smelled of wet leaves and something sharp, metallic. Then she saw it, a shape half buried in the mud, almost invisible against the earth. The German shepherd's eyes caught hers, dull with exhaustion, but piercing, like a lighthouse beam through a storm. Her breath hitched, not from fear, but from the weight of recognition. His despair was her own, a mirror of her quiet grief. She froze, one hand on a low branch, wondering if he was real or a ghost conjured by her longing. Was he alive? Her heart thudded, a rare crack in her numbness, urging her closer. The woods were a skeleton of themselves, twigs snapping under Ava's steps like brittle bones. A chill hung in the air, heavy with the scent of decay and rain-soaked earth. The German shepherd lay in a shallow hollow, his matted fur blending with the mud, ribs stark beneath his skin. His breaths were faint, stirring the dirt like a dying wind. The scene felt like a grave, the trees standing as silent mourners, their shadows pooling around him. Ava's chest tightened. His stillness mirrored her own, a life reduced to mere survival. Somewhere nearby, water dripped from leaves, a metronome to her racing thoughts. The woods pressed in, cold and unyielding, whispering her isolation back to her. This dog, half buried, was a reflection of her own buried heart, and the sight threatened to unravel her carefully guarded silence. Ava knelt near the German shepherd, her knees sinking into the cold mud, her hands trembling not from the chill, but from something deeper, something she hadn't felt since Lila vanished. Her mind churned with fragments of that day. Lila's laugh, her red scarf flapping as she ran into these same woods, never to return. Ava's voice had died then, locked away with her grief, her silence a wall against the world's pitying stares. Now, this dog's hollow eyes bored into her, reflecting her own suppressed pain. She reached out, then stopped, her fingers hovering above his matted fur. He didn't flinch, but his stillness was heavy, as if he too carried a loss, too vast for sound. Ava's throat tightened. She wanted to speak, to ask who had left him here, but her lips stayed sealed, her thoughts screaming instead. Their shared silence felt like a thread, fragile but undeniable, pulling her toward him. Ava's fingers brushed the dirt from the dog's fur, revealing a scar snaking across his shoulder, a mark of battles she couldn't yet fathom. His body was tense, but his eyes held a disciplined focus, like a soldier awaiting orders. She named him Rune in her mind, a word for secrets carved in stone. A rustle broke the silence, leaves shifting in the fog beyond the trees. Ava froze, her pulse spiking. Rune's ears twitched, a low growl rumbling deep in his chest, not at her, but at something unseen. The mist seemed to thicken, hiding whatever watched from the shadows. Ava's gaze locked with Rune's, his eyes promising a truth she wasn't ready for. The air grew heavy, charged with the weight of a secret stirring, a turning point whispering that nothing would be the same. Ava's memories of Lila were vivid, like photographs scattered across a floor she couldn't bear to sweep clean. 4 years ago, they'd raced through these woods, Lila's red scarf a bright slash against the green, her laughter a melody Ava could still hum. Then Lila was gone, vanished at 17, leaving Ava, barely 12, to carry the weight of unanswered questions. That summer, Ava's voice had withered, her words stolen by grief and the endless "what happened" from strangers. Now, at 16, She moved through life like a ghost, her intelligence buried in notebooks filled with sketches and unspoken thoughts. Her parents' hollow eyes mirrored her own, their home a mausoleum of silence. Rune's presence in the woods felt like a crack in that silence, a reminder of the girl she'd been, vibrant once, now lost, yearning for something to anchor her again. Ava's days blurred into a gray routine. School, where she dodged classmates' stares, hallways, where her footsteps echoed alone, and home, where the fridge hummed louder than conversation. She avoided mirrors, afraid of seeing Lila's cheekbones in her own reflection, a cruel reminder of absence. Her parents worked late, their grief a quiet agreement to never speak of Lila. Ava's silence was her shield, keeping questions at bay, but it also trapped her in a cycle of numbness. At night, she scrolled through shelter listings or read old detective novels, seeking answers she couldn't voice. The woods had become her refuge, their damp stillness matching her own. Finding Rune there felt like fate's cruel nudge, stirring her frozen heart. Each step toward the shed where she'd left him was a rebellion against her own detachment, a spark in her endless dusk. Rune's past clung to him like the mud on his fur, a story told in scars and the cautious tilt of his head. He had been a K9, trained to sniff out the lost, his nose once guiding soldiers through chaos to find bodies buried under rubble or time. His last mission haunted him. Lila, a girl he'd been tasked to find, her scent fading into the quarry's cold stone 4 years ago. His handler, a gruff man with kind hands, had died soon after, and Rune was discarded, deemed broken for failing. Now, his eyes carried that failure, dull but sharp with guilt, his disciplined sit a ghost of orders he still obeyed. Each rib pressing against his skin spoke of days, scavenging, surviving on instinct alone. Ava's quiet presence stirred something in him, a memory of purpose, a flicker of trust he thought he'd buried with his past. Ava slipped into the shed at dawn, a stolen sandwich in her pocket, her breath visible in the chilly air. Rune watched from the corner, his body low, eyes tracking her every move. She knelt, sliding the food toward him, and signed, "Eat," her hands steady, despite her racing heart. He hesitated, then took it gently, his gaze never leaving hers. A silent agreement. Ava's thoughts drifted to Lila, to the guilt of not running after her that day. Rune's scars seemed to echo her own, invisible but raw. She taught him signs: stay, come, safe, each gesture a bridge between their wounds. When he mirrored her stillness, lying down as she sat, their shared silence became a language. Their pain aligned, two souls recognizing the other's loss, building trust through the quiet rhythm of presence, a bond forged in the shadows of their grief. Dusk painted the woods in shades of ash, the air thick with the threat of a storm. Ava pushed through the underbrush, her heart pounding as she neared the hollow where she'd first seen Rune. He was there, weaker now, his ribs a stark outline beneath matted fur, his breath a faint mist in the cold. A low whine escaped him, piercing the silence like a needle through Ava's numbness. The sky growled, and rain began to spit, each drop stinging her skin. Rune's eyes, dull but pleading, locked onto hers, and for the first time since Lila vanished, Ava felt a spark of something, empathy, raw and urgent. She couldn't leave him to die, not here, not like this. The woods seemed to close in, urging her to act, to choose life over the apathy that had claimed her for years. Ava's hands hovered over Rune, her mind a battlefield of doubt and dread. What if she was seen? What if caring for him broke the fragile shell she'd built around her heart? The school's lights flickered in the distance, a reminder of the world that dismissed her silence as weakness. Rune shifted, his body trembling but his posture rigid, a disciplined sit that spoke of training, of a purpose she didn't yet understand. Her thoughts screamed, "Walk away, stay safe." But his gaze held her, steady and unyielding, like a soldier awaiting orders. A memory of Lila flashed, her sister's hand squeezing hers, promising they'd always fight for each other. Ava's breath caught. Logic told her to run, but compassion won, a quiet rebellion against her fear. She whispered to herself, "I can't lose him too," and reached for the mud-caked leash tangled in the brush. Rain stung Ava's hands as she clawed at the mud, freeing Rune's tangled leash, her fingers raw and trembling. The storm's growl grew louder, urging haste, but Rune's body was heavy, his limbs stiff from cold and hunger. She tugged gently, her breath hitching as he staggered to his feet, his eyes never leaving hers. The woods seemed to watch, their shadows pooling like ink, amplifying the weight of her choice. Ava led him toward the school's old shed, her steps clumsy, slipping on wet leaves, her heart a drumbeat of fear and resolve. Rune followed, cautious but obedient, his paws dragging but deliberate, as if he sensed her intent. The shed's rusted door creaked open, a sanctuary from the rain, and Ava knelt, her hands shaking as she promised herself she'd keep him alive, no matter the cost. Inside the shed, the air was damp, smelling of rust and old wood. Ava set down a cracked bowl of water, her movements slow, watching Rune's wary eyes track her. He lapped at it, his tongue hesitant, each sip a test of trust. She sat cross-legged on the cold floor, her backpack spilling apples and a half-eaten sandwich, and signed, "Stay," her fingers trembling with the weight of the gesture. Rune's ears twitched, and he settled, his body still but alert, as if recognizing the command from a life long buried. Ava's chest tightened. She hadn't spoken since Lila, but now her lips parted, and a single word slipped out, soft as a prayer. Rune. His eyes softened, a spark of connection flaring in the dim light. The shed felt smaller, warmer, their fragile bond a quiet vow to face the dark together. The shed was a cave of shadows, its walls creaking under the weight of the storm outside. Rune crouched in the far corner, his fur still caked with mud, his eyes glinting like twin moons in the dim light. Ava moved slowly, setting down a bowl of kibble stolen from her neighbor's porch, her breath shallow to avoid startling him. His low growl rumbled, a warning not of aggression, but of fear. His body pressed against the wall, as if the world had only ever offered betrayal. She sat back, cross-legged, her hands still, respecting the chasm between them. Her silence matched his, a dance of caution, where neither dared step too close. Rune's gaze flicked to the food, then back to her, his tension a mirror of her own guarded heart. The air held their unspoken pact. No sudden moves, no trust yet, just the quiet promise of time. Ava's fingers brushed Rune's matted fur as she cleaned a gash on his flank, her touch light but steady, the antiseptic's sting sharp in the air. He flinched but didn't pull away, his eyes locked on hers, wary yet curious, as if measuring her intent. She tore her sandwich in half, sliding the larger piece toward him. He took it gently, his teeth grazing the bread, a small surrender. Her mind drifted to Lila, how they'd shared snacks on the porch, laughing under summer stars. Rune's scars, jagged under her fingers, echoed her own invisible wounds, the guilt of surviving when Lila didn't. She signed good, her hands trembling, and he tilted his head, watching. Their shared pain hung in the shed's stale air, a silent thread weaving them closer. Each glance, each careful gesture, was a step toward trust, their wounds aligning in the quiet. A crate in the shed toppled, clattering against the floor, and Rune's sharp bark sliced through the quiet, his body tense, ears pinned back. Ava froze, her heart lurching as the sound pulled her into a memory. Lila's laugh, bright and reckless, echoing in these same woods years ago. She blinked back tears, her hands signing calm, almost instinctively, her fingers steady despite the ache in her chest. Rune's eyes met hers, his bark fading to a low whine, and he didn't retreat, instead settling closer, his paws shifting on the dirt floor. The moment felt like a bridge, his reaction stirring her past, her gesture anchoring his present. She hummed a fragment of a lullaby Lila used to sing, and Rune's ears twitched, his gaze softening. Their shared silence grew warmer, the shed's shadows less heavy, as small gestures wove their pain into something shared, something alive. Ava dragged a tattered blanket from her backpack, spreading it across the shed's cold floor, its faded blue a faint promise of comfort. Rune watched, his body still but less rigid, his breath no longer a shallow rasp. She sat on the edge, her knees drawn up, and hummed Lila's lullaby again, the notes soft against the rain's distant patter. Rune's ears perked, and he stepped onto the blanket, circling once before lying down, his eyes never leaving her. The shed's air warmed, the musty scent fading beneath the shared rhythm of their breathing. Ava offered a piece of apple. He took it from her hand, his muzzle brushing her fingers, a spark of trust igniting. She smiled, a rare curve of her lips, and for the first time, the shed felt like a haven, their bond a fragile flame, pushing back the dark. The shed's dim light softened the edges of Ava's world, the air thick with the Zfende system, the scent of damp wood and trust. Rune lay on the blanket, his eyes half closed but watchful, his scarred body curled tight. Ava sat cross-legged, her hands still, watching his steady breaths. The silence between them was no longer heavy, but alive, like a shared pulse. She signed, "Safe," her fingers trembling with the weight of the word. Rune's head lifted, and he nudged her hand, his nose cold and deliberate against her palm. Ava's breath caught, a tear slipping down her cheek as she felt the warmth of his touch, the first crack in her silent fortress since Lila. Rune leaned into her, his weight a quiet surrender, his eyes soft with something new. Hope. She stroked his fur, her fingers tracing his scars, and signed, "Stay," again. He sighed, a low rumble, and rested his head on her knee. The moment was a vow, unspoken but solid, their bond a beacon in the dark. Rune's growl was a low vibration, slicing through the shed's stillness as dawn crept through the cracked window. His ears twitched, his body rigid, staring at the door. Ava's pulse quickened. The woods outside were too quiet, the air heavy with something unseen. She crawled to the window, her breath fogging the glass, and spotted fresh footprints in the mud, too large to be hers. A cigarette butt lay crushed nearby, its acrid scent lingering. Rune's hackles rose, his eyes locked on the shadows beyond the trees, his instincts screaming of a threat from his past. Ava's stomach twisted. Someone knew Rune was here. The memory of Mr. Kelly's sharp gaze at school flashed in her mind, his janitor's keys jangling like a warning. The shed felt smaller, the air colder, as Rune's low growl echoed her own rising fear, a silent alarm of danger drawing near. Rune's growl deepened, his body coiled as he paced the shed, his eyes fixed on the door. Ava's heart hammered, her hands signing calm, but her fingers shook, betraying her dread. The cigarette butt outside wasn't random. Mr. Kelly's face flashed in her mind, his cold stare at school, the way he lingered near the woods. Rune's sudden bark, sharp and protective, jolted her back to a memory, Lila's scream in these woods, faint but real, before silence swallowed her. Rune's aggression wasn't just fear. It was recognition, a primal response to a scent from his past. Ava's thoughts spiraled. Had Rune been here when Lila vanished? The shed's walls seemed to close in, the air thick with their shared panic. Rune pressed against her, his warmth a shield, but his bared teeth warned of a threat too close, a ghost from both their pasts resurfacing. The shed door rattled, and Ava's breath stopped as Mr. Kelly's silhouette filled the frame, his keys clinking like a death knell. Rune lunged, his snarl a raw explosion, teeth bared as he blocked Ava's body. Kelly's eyes narrowed, recognition flashing. Rune wasn't just a stray to him. "You found the mutt," he said, his voice low, oily, stepping forward. Ava's mind screamed. He knew Rune, knew what happened to Lila. Flashbacks hit. Rune's frantic digging in the quarry years ago, Kelly watching from a distance, his hands dirty with more than earth. Ava's silence broke, a hoarse "stop" bursting from her throat, her first words in years. Kelly froze, his face twisting, but Rune's growl held him at bay. The standoff was electric, their shared past a live wire, the truth clawing free in the tense air. The shed's air hung heavy, thick with the echo of Ava's voice, her single word, "Stop," still reverberating in her chest. Mr. Kelly had backed away, his boots crunching on wet leaves, his shadow swallowed by the wood's darkness. Rune's growl softened to a low rumble, his body still pressed against Ava's leg, warm and solid. She sank to the floor, her hands trembling as she stroked his fur, her fingers tracing the scars that mirrored her own invisible wounds. Rune's eyes met hers, steady now, a silent promise of protection. The shed felt like a fortress again, but the cigarette butt outside lingered in her mind, a reminder of Kelly's threat. Ava signed, "Safe," her hands steadier, and Rune nudged her palm, their bond a quiet anchor. They sat in silence, the danger gone but its shadow lingering, their trust forged anew in the aftermath of fear. Dawn broke cold, the woods whispering with unease as Ava and Rune slipped out of the shed. Rune's ears twitched, his body low, sniffing the air with a soldier's focus. Ava's breath caught at every snap of a twig, her eyes scanning the trees for Kelly's shadow. A faint metallic clink echoed from the quarry beyond the woods, a place Rune seemed drawn to, his paws pulling toward it. Ava's stomach twisted. Lila's scarf had been found there, tattered and buried. Rune's sudden stillness, his hackles rising, signaled danger before she saw it. Fresh tire tracks in the mud, too recent for comfort. Her hand rested on Rune's back, his warmth steadying her. The quarry loomed closer, its silence a trap, and Ava sensed they were being watched, the past stalking them both with relentless intent. The quarry's edge loomed, its jagged stones like teeth under the gray sky. Rune's growl was a low thunder, his body rigid as he stared into the pit where mist curled like a ghost. Ava's heart pounded. The tire tracks led here, fresh and deliberate, ending at a rusted truck half hidden by brambles. Mr. Kelly stepped from the shadows, a shovel in hand, his eyes cold with intent. "You shouldn't be here, girl," he said, his voice a blade. Rune bared his teeth, positioning himself between Ava and Kelly, his scars glinting in the dim light. Ava's mind flashed to Lila's scarf, found here, and Rune's frantic digging years ago. Kelly had been there, watching, hiding something. The air crackled with danger, life or death hanging in the balance, as Rune's snarl promised no retreat. And Ava's silence braced for a scream. Ava's breath hitched as Kelly raised the shovel, his eyes locked on Rune, who stood unyielding, a wall of fur and fury. Her voice, long buried, clawed up her throat. She couldn't lose Rune, not like Lila. "You killed her," she screamed, the words raw, tearing through years of silence. Kelly flinched, his grip faltering, and Rune lunged, knocking the shovel away, his teeth grazing Kelly's arm. Ava grabbed a rock, her hands steady, despite her trembling heart, ready to protect Rune as he had her. Kelly stumbled back, cursing, his secret exposed in the quarry's cold light. Rune's eyes met Ava's, a silent pact of mutual protection, their bond transforming fear into resolve. The moment was theirs, a choice to fight, to live, to unearth the truth buried too long in these stones. The quarry's silence was heavy, broken only by Ava's ragged breaths and Rune's low whine. Kelly was gone, his truck's roar fading into the distance, leaving only the echo of his guilt. Ava sank to her knees, the cold stone biting through her jeans, her hands trembling as she clutched Rune's fur. He pressed against her, his warmth a lifeline, his eyes soft but alert, scanning the mist. The police would come soon. She'd called them, her voice unsteady but clear, breaking years of silence to report Kelly's confession. Her throat ached, raw from speaking, but the weight of Lila's absence felt lighter, shared now with Rune. The quarry's jagged edges softened in the dawn, a fragile peace settling over them. Ava signed, "Safe," and Rune's tail flicked, a quiet acknowledgement, their bond a steady anchor in the aftermath of truth. Days later, Ava sat on her porch, Rune at her side, his fur clean now, his scars less stark in the soft light. She offered him a piece of bread. He took it gently, his eyes meeting hers with a trust that felt like home. Each small gesture, his nudge against her hand, her signing "good boy," wove their healing tighter. Ava's parents watched from the window, their faces softer, stirred by her voice returning. Rune followed her everywhere now, his steps matching hers, a shadow no longer of fear, but of loyalty. She hummed Lila's lullaby, and he tilted his head, listening, his presence filling the void Lila left. The air smelled of autumn leaves, crisp and alive, their shared glances a silent promise of recovery. Over time, their wounds, hers in words, his in scars, began to mend, mirrored in the quiet rhythm of their days. Ava walked the woods with Rune, their steps in sync, leaves crunching underfoot like a heartbeat. The quarry was behind them now, its secrets unearthed, Lila's case reopened, Kelly's arrest, a quiet justice. Rune paused at the hollow where Ava first found him, his nose brushing the earth, then lifted his head to rest it against her hand. She knelt, her fingers tracing his collar, now bearing a tag with his name. Her voice, still fragile, whispered Rune, and he leaned into her, his warmth a final release of fear. She signed home, her hands steady, and he nudged her, his eyes bright, free of guilt. The woods, once a grave, felt alive now, their shared path a quiet rebirth, a symbol of trust, forged from silence and truth.